As you grow your business, you're likely starting subscriptions to things left and right like Showit, Dubsado or Honeybook, Flowdesk, Riverside, and Kajabi, just to name a few. To get the best deals on your needed software and easy to understand info about why you might need that software and if it's right for you, head to elizabethmccravey.com/tools. This is my robust resource page full of the tools I use to run my business and what I recommend for my students and customers. You'll find everything from website tools to financial and legal tools, and even my go-to business bank and credit card. This page is free to access and just about guarantees to save you money with all the great promos and discount codes I have for these companies. So before you hit subscribe in that software, go to elizabethmccravey.com/tools to see if there's a deal to help you save a little extra money. Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, an online educator for entrepreneurs, website designer, wife, boy mom, and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want to dive deep into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a sustainable business that fits your unique lifestyle while standing out in a crowd, then you are in the right place. I created a multiple six-figure a year business in my early 20s, and now in my 30s, I'm still running that successful multiple six-figure a year business on just part-time hours now as a working mom. I'm here to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe that the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, website design, personal branding, mindset, time management as a busy parent, scalable and passive income, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. Today's episode is a solo guest training with the lovely Natania from Natania Creates, and I've loved following Natania for years now and love her perspective on business building and faith really put together. This is something, if you follow her on Instagram, you'll see this like all over her content. And I know a lot of you guys have told me you want more people to follow who talk about faith and business together and create content in that way. And she is one of those people. So go check her out. And the best thing I can say about this episode, she really just preaches today. But you will hear her talk about experiencing a forced season of rest after becoming a first-time mom, wrestling with ambition, identity, and control. She talks about comparison to other business owners, which I really loved her perspective on this. So if you feel like you're someone who struggles a lot with like feeling like you should be farther along or like just looking too much what other people are doing, she really has a great like faith, scriptural based way to approach this. She talks about how to build a business that'll actually last, which again, like I feel like I need to re-listen to this episode. It's really good. She talks about how we can unintentionally be telling God we're going to build the business without him, but instead how to build our business with God. And like, what does that practically mean? Like, you know, you hear that and you're like, oh, that sounds cool and sweet, but like, what does that actually look like? And I really love it. She ends with a few practical tips so you can apply what she's sharing to your business and life right now that are like, we're talking about the scripture, we're going a bit high level, but like, here's some really practical stuff too. So enjoy. This feels like an episode I personally am going to re-listen to when it airs. It also is one that feels hard to pick the title for because so much just beautiful, like God-led stuff is shared here in this episode that I think is really going to help you and speak to you with where you are in your business. And I think it's one you'll want to listen to over and over again too when you need that. Need a little sermon about God's plan for you and his plan for your business, whether it's a tough day or you feel like you're on a mountain after something really great happened in work. Again, I think this episode will really speak to you. So thank you, Natania, for recording this for us. And here is her training.
I am so excited to be on the Breakthrough Brand podcast. My name is Natania. I'm a business coach, digital marketer, and the founder of Natania Creates, where I teach women how to start, launch, and scale their business so they can live and build a life full of financial freedom, doing whatever they like to do in this world. And I have recently expanded my vision to a digital marketing agency called Studio by M, where we offer done-for-you video content and marketing support all the way from strategy to full-out execution, helping local brands and brands worldwide on how they can show up powerfully online. But personally, for me, I'm a brand new mom. I am also a happily married wife. I am also a dog mom. And I am somebody who knows firsthand what it's like to navigate the tension of trusting God while building a business, while going through a major life transition like giving birth and going through that 6 weeks postpartum and now stepping into a new identity called mom. And in that season that feels so uncertain, quiet, slower than expected, I have been on this amazing journey of trusting God. And I'm so excited for today's episode that I get to pour into you all of the things that I have learned, some a little bit on the hard way, but things that I have learned that I know is going to help you as well. And so today I want to talk to the woman who says with her mouth that God is my provider, but in action, she's hustling like she's on her own. And listen, I've been there, running a business while burning out, overworking, obsessing over the details, over the results, over the success. Even though in those moments I knew better, but I still decided to take things up in my own arms. And so if you're listening right now thinking she's talking to me, sis, I am. Okay, I am. And let's be real. I know what it's like to build a successful business on paper, but after entering motherhood, I could see that God was gently but firmly walking me into a quote unquote forced season of rest. And even though I wanted to keep going, I fought this rest. I fought this Sabbath. I fought this pause. But God was very loving, very patient, very kind, taking me on a sabbatical. And the thing about this sabbatical is there was no end date. It was open-ended. There was no deadline. There was no certainty. There was no like, here's when it's going to end. I just had to trust that God would speak to me and provide. And so that's what we're going to be talking about for today's episode of living like God pays you. So I want you to get cozy on in, grab your journal. I want to share with you some of the things that I've learned in that season where I wrestled with ambition. And let's be real, this is a safe space. So I wrestled with identity and control and provision. And through this season of rest, God brought me to Psalms 127, 1-2. And I want to read this for you in your hearing, but I want you to go back and read this in your own private time with the Lord. But it says, unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman keeps awake in vain. It is vain for you to rise early, to retire late, to eat the bread of anxious labors, for he gives blessings to his beloved, even in his sleep. And so I want to sit with that. Have you been eating the bread of anxious labor? In another translation, it says the bread of anxious toil. And I'll be honest, I was eating that bread for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, snack time. I was that person who was eating the bread of anxious labor. And the thing about this bread is this bread doesn't last. And that's why you're constantly filling yourself up with this false sense of hope and false sense of security and false sense of satisfaction. But you are seeing that I already partook in this. I already ate this bread. I already did this thing and it's not lasting. And so I'm going to eat it again and again and again in hopes that this bread, that this thing is going to fill me up. This anxious bread of labor is going to satisfy the anxiety in my heart, and it doesn't. And so I've learned that this bread is restlessness. This bread is anxiety. This bread is filled with fear. This bread is you striving. It's rooted in self-effort, self-dependency, self-made. you not being able to trust God. And so you're eating this bread, not realizing that this bread doesn't last. And I realized that this bread, as I'm eating it, and again, it's a metaphor, but in a very practical business sense, it sounded like if I don't post today, I'm going to miss the algorithm. If I don't post today, I'm not going to be kept top of mind. If I don't show up today, I'm not going to make a sale. If I don't send that email, nobody's going to buy. If I'm not visible on social media, my business is going to tank. If I don't launch this program, I'm not going to hit my income goals. If I slow down, money will stop. And let me remind you, God is your source of provision, not your schedule, not the algorithm, not going viral, not your systems, not your strategies, not your educators, not your coaches. God is the source of your provision, not even your clients. Even if you get a sale, a transaction, that Stripe notification goes off, or somebody purchases, at the end of the day, the bottom line is that God is your source of provision. And so you might want to grab your journal and ask yourself, where have I been relying on hustle over God's help? I want you to sit with that. I want you to sit with, are you eating the bread of anxious labor? And what I realized is, as I was, again, meditating on this, and as God was forcing me into the season of rest, and I went down a little bit kicking and screaming, I had to come to terms with, I know I'm eating this bread of anxious labor. And because I am, what bread should I be eating? And that's why Jesus says, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. And that's why he also says, you keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts you. And so I have learned that when you find yourself eating the bread of anxious labor, feeling like your business has to run solely on your action, solely on your best efforts, that is when we get into the slippery slope of, I'm in this alone. I am building my business by myself. I am the start from the beginning. I am the end to the middle to the first chapter. Like, when you run and operate your business from this anxious self-dependency position, you're showing God that you don't actually need him. You're showing God that you're going to rely on your best efforts then over his help. And so that brings me into my next point. And that is, don't build your business without God. And so I want us to go even a little bit deeper, because what I really love at the beginning of this passage is in Psalm 127, it says, unless the Lord builds the house. So let's just stick a pin in that. If you're running a business that God is not in, you labor in vain. And I remember reading this verse, and it wrecked me in the most beautiful way of oh my goodness, Jesus, you're talking to me. You're talking to me. And that's what God is saying. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you. Unless the Lord builds your business, you build in vain. Unless the Lord builds your business, your posting is futile. Unless the Lord sanctions this part and area of your business, it's almost like you're fighting the hand of God. It's almost like you're saying, I am more powerful than the God of the universe. And that's not what we're saying. We're not saying that. But that's what our actions are communicating. And so this verse is showing us that it's possible to build something, to plant something really great, and to even see success. And that's where things get tricky, because it is possible to build a profitable business that is wildly successful, and you are still building in vain because it is out of alignment. And so, real talk, you can be booked and burnt out. You can be booked and busy and out of alignment. You can be growing a profitable business on paper and grinding and hustling and toiling and eating the bread of anxious labors without the appropriate portion of grace that God has appointed for you in this current season. You're operating out of alignment. And so, if you've ever felt like you were forcing something in your business, that could be a red flag that this isn't God led in the first place. And that was another truth that I had to come to terms with. And again, on paper, I have seen wild success. I have seen my business go from 0 to 6 figures in 6 months. I have seen that business go from 6 figures to multi 6 figures. I have seen profit. I have seen clients. I have gotten amazing opportunities, global speaking engagements. But I have also been burnt out, operating out of alignment and lacking the grace that God has given me in that season because I decided that I was going to go ahead of him because I thought that I knew best and I didn't. And here's where it gets good. When I read that verse and I come online, and maybe you can relate to this as well, is you may be watching other people at the pinnacle heights of their business. They're on cloud 10. They're soaring. They're going viral. They got a team. They've expanded. They got systems. They're getting the speaking engagements. They're rubbing shoulders with the celebrities and the most influential content creators of this time and era. And you may be scrolling online and watching other people build and watching other people go to higher heights. And in your own corner, you're thinking, but God, what about me? God, what about me? What about me? Have you ever felt that way? I hope I'm not the only one. But listen, there's a verse in Proverbs 13:22, and it talks about the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. And I remember that in moments of comparison, in moments where I feel like I'm overlooked by God, in moments where my business has slowed down, in moments of me taking a year off of maternity leave, and my business is at a significantly slower pace because I know that right now is the time where I'm to focus on nurturing and raising and bonding with my son. I have these human moments of comparison. And that's what I love, where Proverbs comes in and says, the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. And I've learned that not all success is sustainable. Not all fruit is godly fruit. And so right now, I'm talking about right now, people that you have seen online right now, before you're even listening to this episode, there are people that you are currently comparing yourself to, and you think that you're behind because they're ahead and they're at this chapter in their business and you're at chapter 1 or chapter 5 and they're killing it online and they are going viral and they have all of these goals and accomplishments and accolades that are highly esteemed, the clout, the fame, the visibility that you deep down desire. And it's not necessarily a bad thing to desire. I want you to know that not everyone is building their business that lasts. And that's why I love Psalm 127, where it says, unless the Lord builds their business, they build in vain. And so could it be that right now you are comparing yourself to people who are building businesses that are futile, that are building businesses that are in vain, that people who look like they're killing it online and they're attaining levels of wealth, because that's what Proverbs 13 says. They have wealth. Could it be that they are taking the time to build this wealth, but not knowing that their success won't last because it's not built on the rock? And so let me remind you to not ever compare Comparison is a distraction from the construction site that God has placed inside of you and the blank canvas filled with unlimited possibilities He has outlined for your business. And so you have to remind yourself that you're building something that is eternal, something that will last, something that is backed by heaven, and not something that is built in vanity, and not something that is built that won't last in the long run. And that was something that I had to also come to terms with, because in the midst of everyone else scaling and going viral and bringing in this revenue and thinking, wow, everybody else is building, you have to remember that not everyone's wealth is built equally. And that you also don't have to compromise to succeed. If you remain in alignment with God and you don't move ahead of Him and you don't move outside of His plan and outside of the grace, again, that He has allotted for you in this current season of your life, and you learn contentment and you learn satisfaction with what God has given you, you will learn that you're building something that will last and something that will stay till the very end. And at the end of the day, God is not impressed with these major accolades that we so desire to have here on earth. God is after things that will last in the end. And that's another reminder that I wanted to give to you. And before we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with another point, that you want to have faith over fear when it comes to your finances. And so there were moments within my business journey where I had a lot of fear, and I didn't believe that God was going to come through for me. And I didn't believe that God was going to allow my business to reach different financial milestones, or that I could take, months off and still be well financially. And so one of my favorite parts in our anchoring text for today, Psalms 127, is that for He gives blessings to His beloved, even in His sleep.
If managing your business's finances feels daunting and you typically come to the end of the month not sure how to pay yourself, or if you're doing the business savings thing, quote unquote, right, then I have a free guide for you. Over my 9 years of business, I've learned some financial skills the hard way, and a few years ago, I developed an 8-step process I go through at the end of each month. This process helps me know how my business is doing financially, pay myself well, and allocate money for things like taxes and expenses, and also document notes about the month that'll help me make financial decisions in the future. Again, I've been doing this process since early 2023, and it truly has changed the way I do my business for the better and has helped me ultimately make more money. And I want to help you do the same. So you can grab this 8-step process literally for free at elizabethmccravy.com/profit. There's a whole PDF guide for you there that you can download and go through for free. That's elizabethmccravy.com/profit.
And I want us to sit with that even more. Did you know that God can do more with your business while you sleep and not work than while you're awake and working? Did you know that? I remember having to, again, meditate on this during my season of rest, because I would read these verses and not really believe in my heart that this verse applies to me. And so I want to challenge that little voice of doubt that says, that's not for you, because it is. God's words are true. They are yes and amen. God's words don't fall to the ground. They do not change. They do not falter. And so when we hear that God gives blessings to His beloved, even in His sleep, that shows us that we can go to bed at night, that we don't have to wake up early and retire late and eat the bread of anxious labors, because God gives provision. God blesses. God provides increase. God allows us to succeed. God opens doors. God gives opportunities even when you are fast asleep. even when you are on maternity leave, even when you are sick, even when you're not able to work, even when you're at church, even when you're helping or serving somebody else, even when you're doing other things. God promises to provide. And so even during a crazy busy season of a launch, or you're hosting an event, or you're writing a book, or you're trying to meet a deadline, or you're going through a major life transition, I want you to know that this is your permission slip that you can take a break. You may be thinking, well, what if I don't make enough? What if nobody buys during this launch? What if I lose momentum when I'm on maternity leave? That was something that I struggled with. What if I become irrelevant, become forgotten, that I'm taking a year off during maternity leave? Let me tell you, God provides in and out of peak seasons. God doesn't just bless the launch and bless the high peak moments, but God blesses you when you sleep. God blesses you in the valley. God blesses you in the slow seasons. God doesn't just provide when you're posting. God provides when you don't post. God provides when you don't send the email. God provides when you take a sabbatical, because rest is biblical. God gives blessings to you even when you are asleep. Provision does not slow down or stop when you take a break. If He owns the cattle on the hill, God promises to provide for you. So even if you're going through a crazy, busy season, I want you to give yourself permission to rest, because it takes faith to rest. Did you know that it takes a measure of faith to close your laptop, to log out of Instagram, to shut down those apps, to turn off your phone, to sleep with your phone in another room, to give yourself that break or that peace, to step away from the algorithm and to tell the algorithm or to tell a launch, you don't control me. You're not my source of provision. God Almighty is. And God, I trust that whatever efforts, whatever hours of work I have put in today, that is enough. And you will bless that, you will expand that, and that is enough for today. And so if you've ever been scared to rest, sis, this is your permission slip. And so I want to end with some practical, hands-on ways to actually live like God pays you. And number one, rest on purpose. Do not feel like you have to rest when you're about to crash out, okay? Try to schedule in a Sabbath, a rest, days off, weeks off in your calendar, and plan your business around that season of rest. Number two is, I want you to trust God with your finances. I want you to actually take His word, take the Bible at face value. When you come across challenging verses, and for me, that was Psalms 127, I want you to lean into that. I don't want you to be so quick to brush off some of these verses that you come across and think, wow, this is a great verse. I hope I can see the fruit of this verse in my life. Challenge God at this verse. God, this is your verse. I don't believe. Help my unbelief. I want to see this verse made manifest in my life. Pray that prayer, because God is faithful to respond. And lastly, I want you to steward the slow seasons. Do not be so quick to get out of seasons of rest. Let me tell you, God put me in a season of rest. He told me to take a month off, and I went down kicking and screaming for the first couple weeks. And then I said, this is amazing. I feel like I'm on a forever long vacation. I get to slow down. I get to just enjoy this season with my son. And I remember thinking, I feel like, I can come back online. I feel like I'm ready, but I'm not quite sure. I really am loving the season of rest. And God said, you're good to go. You're good to come off this season of rest. And within a couple days of coming off a month-long sabbatical, I got so many different opportunities and a new business idea, speaking engagement. I got brand partnerships, and my life got the most busiest it has ever been all year within that short window of like 48 hours, all because I trusted God at his word. And so if this episode blessed you, I want you to share it with another sister who is in a season of uncertainty, whether she's going through a life transition, whether she is going on maternity leave, or she's just in the brick of her business. I want you to share this episode with her and screenshot it and tag me at Natania Creates and let me know what your biggest takeaway was from today's episode, because I am cheering for you. I am wishing you all the most success in your business and that you will steward every single season that God will put you in this year. And so I just want to thank you again for listening. And remember, you are not self-funded. You are not self-made. You are backed by heaven, created by God with a purpose, and you are living on purpose, that God has a plan for you and your business, and that God is not short of any dollar amount. He is not short of any dollar amount. God is faithful to provide for you. And no matter what season you find yourself in, He is with you. All right, that is it for me. I wish you a very well rest of your day whenever you listen to this episode, and we'll talk soon.
Hey, thank you for listening to the podcast all the way to the end. I appreciate you being here. And if you enjoyed this episode, then I want to invite you to check out my website template shop too. Over on elizabethmccravey.com, you'll find show it website templates that are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you make more money from your website. Maybe your current website is really boring, maybe it's a challenge to update, and maybe it's even the thing you feel like is holding your business back. Your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers, and that's exactly what my templates do. These templates are designed to be SEO friendly on the back end, not just pretty, and also strategic with all the strategies I teach on the show, and they are easy for you to set up all by yourself. So shop them at elizabethmccravey.com/shop and come join thousands of happy customers using these templates. And as an added perk, you can use the code BBPodcast at checkout to get 10% off your template as a thank you for being part of the podcast fam. Again, that's BB Podcast for 10% off any template over on elizabethmccravey.com. Also, if you loved this episode, leaving a rating and review for the show on wherever you're listening or sharing it with a friend is a great way to support this podcast. Thank you again for listening, and I'll be back next week with a new episode. Need some extra pages to improve or add on to your show it website, but you're not in the market for an entirely new template. Been there. Sometimes you just need a little extra help to save you time as you add new things to your website as your business grows. That's why I put a huge focus on creating show it add-on templates to meet your needs, including tons of add-ons that you won't find in any other template shop. From pages to promote yourself as a conference speaker, to pages to house information about your podcast, add-on templates to help you build a quiz lead magnet, favorite things pages, Instagram link in bio so you can ditch that Linktree subscription, and so much more. Head to elizabethmccravey.com/shop to see them all. There are so many more than what I just named, and you can even bundle them together to save more. But as a podcast listener, you can also use the code BBPOD to save an additional 15% off on your add-on or full site template purchase for a limited time. If you are hearing this ad right now, that means the deal is available. So go shop now using the code BBPOD.